But I'd like to share with you some of the research that Rafe Royale and Larissa Becker have been doing on their master's project, looking at lysine requirements of Duroc-based or DNA-sired pigs. And obviously, lysine requirements is going to be a very important role in terms of pig performance. Certainly, as Jason said, economics is going to be an important factor, but it's also important for setting the ratios of other amino acids. How much threonine or methionine we add to diets, that all comes into play. And lately, the trend in the U.S. swine industry is people are looking at more Duroc-based terminal sires. And we know that differences in feed intake, differences in growth performance, differences in feed efficiency are all going to come in and play differences in terms of requirements. And so that's why Rafe and Larissa have been conducting several studies looking at lysine requirements of DNA-sired pigs. And I'm going to start out with Rafe's trial first. He looked at just under 3,000 pigs, full DNA program pigs, where we looked at the home farm of 40 to 80, 80 to 120, 110 to 170, 150 to 120, and then 220 to 290 pounds. Looked at lysine levels as we progressed through weight range. And to share some of the results, this purple line represents the curve for lysine to energy ratio to maximize growth performance, okay, to give us maximum growth performance. And the blue line, that represents to maximize income over feed cost or profitability. And what the data tells us is that with the current price of feed ingredients, especially early, that we can't quite afford to maximize growth performance, that we see that the marginal returns aren't quite enough to offset the increase in diet costs. The other thing that the data tells us is that very early in the pig's life, that you can get by with feeding a wide range of lysine levels. And we've known this from past studies that you can be a little bit below the requirement, you can be a little bit above the requirement, not that you'd want to be, but you can feed relatively wide levels of lysine. But in late finishing, there you need to be spot on. And it's very important, not only from a growth performance standpoint, but here from an economical standpoint as well, that it's important to be meeting the pig's requirement. And so when we superimpose the red line, this is the DNA's current recommendations. We didn't go quite as heavy as what they recommend. The midpoint of our last experiment ended at about 250 pounds, so we didn't want to project beyond that. But we're a little bit higher early, a little bit lower late, and then come very close down in late finishing. So looking at some of the recommended levels versus what we've seen in our studies. Same slide. Oh, percent lysine. Thanks, Mike. Again, I'm setting a trend. Here we have percent lysine instead of energy to calorie ratio. And again, we're coming up, Rafe and Larissa are doing a great job in terms of looking at lysine requirements as we go through from 50 pounds on to market weight. Now, Larissa came up in conjunction with the Pipestone Group. We appreciate their support in research partnership. She looked at about 4,000 pigs, basically from 110 to 180 pounds, and then an experiment 200 to about 300 pounds. And in the green line, we superimposed Larissa's results of her studies. Her results came in a little bit higher early, which was a little bit of a surprise, but again, down in late finishing, really spot on. And Larissa's studies published in Swine Day, you can review some of the results of that. But again, looking at the different options, the different comparisons, looking at lysine levels. Again, what Rafe and Larissa, their research projects, we've got a lot of data to analyze. We're still getting started on things and trying to model and compare requirements across studies, compare requirements based on response criteria. But again, these charts represent some of our preliminary analysis, some of our initial thoughts on where we should be feeding Duroc sired pigs, and hopefully we'll have more tools on our webpage, KSU Swine, where a lot of the information that you've seen today, the survivability project, other projects we're working with Genesis on establishing lysine curves, but hopefully we're going to come up with calculators that you can come in, plug in your weight ranges, diet energy concentrations, and come up with lysine levels.